Hello everyone. This video briefly introduces my conference paper, A Bottom-Up Dilemma, International Investment Law and Environmental Governance. My paper addresses the problem of the tension between international investment law and environmental protection. The past 5 decades have seen the rapid development of international investment law. Now we have more than 3,000 investment treaties. These treaties accord substantive protection to foreign investors and allow those investors to bring claims against host states under the Investor-State Dispute Settlement (ISDS) mechanism. There have been an increasing number of cases where states' environmental measures were claimed by foreign investors as a violation of investment treaty obligations. The literature mainly focuses on how to preserve states' right to regulate under international investment law. In my paper, I try to analyze this issue from a governance perspective. The paper defines a bottom-up dilemma between environmental governance and international investment law. Today, environmental governance is increasingly decentralized, adaptive, and participatory. But this bottom-up trend of environmental governance makes it vulnerable to violate international investment law, which regards the host state as an integrated governing actor that should provide stable and consistent governance in an independent way from public interference. In ISDS cases, this bottom-up dilemma is reflected in 3 facets: governing actors, levels of governance, and modes of governance. First is governing actors. Environmental governance cannot be successful without citizen engagement and public participation. The literature has well recognized the importance of a participatory, democratic, and reflective mode of environmental governance. This can be seen in the theories of collaborative conservation, civic environmentalism, community-based initiatives, and interactive environmental governance. However, the role of non-state actors in international investment law is quite limited. Investment treaties govern the regulatory relationship between the host state as the governor and the foreign investor as the governed. In investment arbitration, tribunals usually take a negative attitude to those politically motivated government actions taken under public pressure. In some investment cases, the tribunals refuse to consider public opposition as a justifiable ground for host states' adverse treatment of foreign investments. This results in the tension between participatory environmental governance and investment treaty obligations. The second facet of the dilemma is the levels of governance. Environmental governance is in many cases polycentric and multilevel. Environmental decisions are usually made by authorities from local, regional, national, or international levels. This polycentric style of governance can enhance resilience capacity and produce institutions that better face the ecological and social context. Environmental governance is usually understood as a network in which many actors interact in a decentralized and pluralistic way. By contrast, foreign investment protection is guaranteed by a top-down legal regime. It regards the host state as an integrated party where the national government will be held accountable for the wrongdoings of its political subunits. This results in the cases that international investment law preempts domestic environmental measures in provincial or local levels. Although this is in line with international law of state responsibility, the unbalanced regimes between investment and environmental rules in the international level makes environmental governance relatively vulnerable. What's more, investment law requires consistent and predictable decision makings between national, provincial, and local levels. Investment tribunals have held that the contradictory conducts between different levels of government had violated investment treaty standards. This results in the tension between polycentric environmental governance and international investment law. The third facet of the dilemma is the modes of governance. Environmental governance requires an adaptive, evolutionary, and resilient governing mode. Good environmental management is a learning process through experimentation and transformation. In recent years, the evolutionary governance theory has emerged as a response to the constant change and radical transition of the social ecological systems, especially in the field of climate change. It understands environmental governance as a process of constant evolution and regards stability as somewhat illusory. However, international investment law favors stability over change. A main focus of investment treaties is to create a stable and predictable legal environment for foreign investors. Some investment treaties include stabilization clauses where states commit not to change its laws during the life of investment. And almost all investment treaties include the fair and equitable treatment clause that protects the foreign investor's legitimate expectations at the time of making the investment. Some tribunals have interpreted legitimate expectations as ensuring a stable and predictable legal framework, which may hinder the change of environmental law or the innovation of new environmental standards. In conclusion, environmental governance reflects a bottom-up trend of polycentric, adaptive, and participatory decision-making processes. But international investment law has a top-down structure that requires consistent, stable, and predictable governance of foreign investments. This results in the bottom-up dilemma where states face conflicting obligations regarding the allocation of governmental authorities, the manner of norm evolution, and the inclusiveness of decision making. To solve this dilemma, I propose that future tribunals and treaty makers should take into account the different governance features of investment and environmental protection, so as to strike a fair balance between environmental and investment interests. In arbitral practice, tribunals should take into account the participatory, polycentric, and dynamic features of environmental governance in deciding whether a particular environmental decision is justifiable. In treaty making, contracting parties should clarify the standards of protection in investment treaties to defer to the governance space of environmental protection. That's a summary of my paper. Thanks for your attention.